Hey, good morning. This is Jared and Nate from the Ecarriercheck warehouse, if you will. And we're talking some freight today. We're going to talk about probably some of the better questions that we got this week so that we can talk about, we had one guy that talked about and asked, what's a day look like as a dispatcher? What's a day look like as a freight broker? But before we get into some of those questions, we got a lot of them. We got lined up here. I really want to ask you how your week was. What made the impact? How was it? What did you learn?
Yeah, no, it's obviously been a good crazy week. We're running a little bit late today. Phones are going off like crazy, so that's good. Things are moving. It's been a good week. Demos have been really great. A lot of good questions.
Yeah.
So obviously we're going to talk about that today. For those of you that are just seeing this or showing up, come check out our demos. We got 3 demos a week. Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, and just come check out Ecarriercheck and see how we can help you grow your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, there's Mr. Riviera. What's going on, man? How are you? It's good to see you. How was your week, man? Tell us how your week was. We'd love to hear what you struggled with or what you might have had some success with. As we dive into the questions, we're just going to jump right in and kind of hit on some sales questions and we can hit on that. So, a couple of things that a guy asked me earlier this week was, he said, "Hey, how many calls should I be making? What should my day look like? How many times should I be following up? Should I be calling the next day? Should I call today and tomorrow and Wednesday until I get a hold of somebody? What does the day look like?" Now, to kind of give you just a backstory of this guy, he doesn't have any accounts right now, right? There's no accounts. He is a freight broker. He just got his authority, got his insurance. He's doing what he's supposed to. Hey, Brian, what's going on, man? How are you?
Morning.
Super good to hear from you. I hope you had a good week. Tell me how your week was. I'd love to hear.
Fun fact, Tire Killer, you are our most watched user and you leave the most comments. We really appreciate you for doing that and being there.
I love that. Brian, you're the man. So anyway, so this guy asked me, he goes, "Oh, hey, how many times should I be calling?" Also interesting backstory from this guy is he used to be an owner-operator. He was a flatbedder in Idaho and Montana, got hurt, and ended up just saying, "Hey, I still love this industry. I just can't do it anymore. So I'm going to try to help." And I said, "Okay." So he said, "Well, how many, I'm used to really strapping loads down and doing more trucking operations of truck sales." So I told him, I said, "Well, here's what I would do personally is I would try to find, either A, get on Ecarriercheck and start looking for loads, right? There's the obvious sales question there. But the second one was, find some old bill of lading and start just to make what I called relationships, right? Let's start to call old carrier buddies that you used to know, tell them what you're doing, right? Let's start calling, some of those old shippers, some of those old receivers that you had good relationships with, and let them know what you're doing, right?" And so what he was doing on Wednesday when we had this conversation is he was going to make a list of all those people and start making relationships. In this industry, the business model of a freight broker has already been proven, right? Now it's the person, right? It's the person that's actually going to do it. So I mean that's awesome. Brian just said found a local gig that has me home every night and off on the weekends. How did you find that, Brian? You got to tell us how you found that? I friggin' love that. Good for you, man. That's insane. So anyway, back to our guy in Idaho. He was making his prospecting list. He was making a list of carriers and shippers. And I think that's really important that you just start to get out and build relationships. How many times do we talk about relationships?
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day. Picking up the phone and trying to make that call, and all got to start somewhere. So just try it. Attempt it.
Yeah. You just got to get started. Yeah. A lot of people think that things just have to be perfect, and they don't. Your sales call doesn't have to be perfect. You're mumbling, if you will, or, you're stumbling through your words. It doesn't have to be perfect. Right. It'll get better as you go. This is why, with that guy up, and his name's Edward, nice guy. Edward, if you're watching, I'm glad you're on today, but it's one of those things where it's like, okay, just start to make calls, start to do some research. And he mentioned to me, he said, "Well, if they don't answer today, do I call them back tomorrow?" And the answer is yes. Yeah, just give them a call. Now there is a point of what I like to call professional persistence.
Okay.
So I want to talk about that
Yeah.
for a minute because professional persistence is one of those things where you you don't want to be the annoying guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that
I
make
hear that
sense?
a lot. Yeah.
If
Because they always want to know how long to work on this lead. And
Yeah,
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 I get what you're
it's
saying.
almost like dating,
Right.
right? You get a girl's number at a bar. Obviously, I'm married. Just to give you a heads up, but Nate, is single. But if you get a girl's number, I mean, how many days do you wait?
Fair question.
Right,
It's tough.
right. It's kind of the same thing with shippers.
Yeah.
You're sort of dating. You're trying to do, whether you're dating, whether you're trying to get a new carrier, new shipper. You're just trying to build trust.
Definitely. That's what it comes down to, building that trust for sure.
I love that. So Brian says a local broker I use offered it to me. It's friggin' awesome, man. Hey, honestly, and I gotta say, Brian, I am sure at the end of the day, let's just be real. He's had this run for 3 years now with a local scrapyard. Let's be honest. You probably have been building this relationship with this guy for a long time, and he's like, I just need to use Brian, right? I mean, it's one of those things that's definitely out there. Um, so I love that. Kim, nice to see you today as well. So that was one of my favorite questions. He mentioned, how do we go from building those relationships, transitioning to a broker? And I mentioned to him as well is use your strengths. Obviously, he's got strengths in those relationships that he used to build, but he's a carrier, right? He's a carrier. He knows how to start trap. Just put a load on a flatbed, right? He knows how to twerp it. He knows how to strap it down, right? He knows all these things. So mention that as you're trying to grow your business. Use your strengths. We had a guy the other day that was from the real estate and insurance industry, right? I said, you need to go target real estate and insurance shippers.
They have their niche and they don't even know it. So,
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's why we have this community. I like that. I like that idea though.
Absolutely. What's another good question you got this week?
This is a really good one. So I was on our demo yesterday and a dispatcher asked, well, how do you know where some of the their equipments are at, where are they hot at? So we talked about Texas, for instance. That's a big flatbed world.
Yeah.
Hot shots. He's like, well, where are the vans and reefers most popular at? So we kind of talked about that. Mainly those bigger cities. I felt like maybe Atlanta. I told him kind of just pick up the phone and you'll start getting the vibe for that.
Yeah.
So that was a really good question. And then trying to find a niche, that was another thing too as well, because that's his whole point of that question is to help find his niche. Somehow he wanted to find a niche and kind of go off that.
How did you? A couple things that I just we talked to so many brokers, so many carriers, so many dispatchers. I can tell you right now that the people that are more successful in this industry have a niche.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. They've found something that they like. They've found, they're just really entertained, right? They know, hey, I know steel really well. Hey, I know this region really well, right? They can niche in geographic, in industry, in equipment. I mean, there's so many ways of niching. When you said, how do I find a niche? Where did you run him down that road?
Well, I just kind of thought, I told him to kind of sit back and just think about what he knows the most about and what interests him the most. So whatever can he get into to sound like an expert in that industry, would make him sound better. So that's kind of some of the things we're going to catch up next Wednesday and talk more about this. But that was a really good question on his end.
Yeah. Anytime you have some kind of interest in it, it'll help. It helps make the day not so just kind of
like dragging.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this is kind of fun. I enjoy this. I like this. It says Riviera, I'm working on building up my hotshot network in Los Angeles. All the ones that I call on from the load boards have been double brokers. Tons of freight guards or inactive authorities. Finding trustworthy hotshots can be tricky. Oh my gosh, you kind of killed it right there. I had the opportunity, was it yesterday or the day before, to sit in, or the week was quick, to sit in at a brokerage, and it's so interesting. They said almost literally the exact same thing. They said, how do you trust anybody? How do you find an actual hotshot that can help you? That's actually legit, right? I'd be curious, how are you actually finding those hotshot people? Is it the phone calls, the emails? Because what I saw in the brokerage was when they posted up a flatbed load, right? Just a 20-foot, 8,000-pound load. They got immediate Glendale calls. They got immediate calls from double brokers that you could just tell the carrier literally had no inspections, no mileage notated in the last 3 years. What do you do?
It's kind of a red flag in a way. So,
It is.
good question.
And if you don't know that these calls are coming to you, you identify, right? A couple things that I do is I look at, this is just some things that I do. I did, and I witnessed yesterday in this spray brokerage was, first and foremost, do they have an actual inspection in the last year, right? In the last 6 months, has their truck been in and out somewhere? Even that small trucking company for the community that we're in, I make those calls for Twin City Cartage, right?
Right.
They have, 3 drivers, 5 drivers, somewhere in there. Depends on drivers coming and going. They still have inspections. If we look them up on Ecarriercheck, they have inspections. They're known. They report their mileage every year. They're doing the process that you're supposed to do with the FMCSA. Right?
Yeah, they're just making themselves active, and that is tricky. I like how you said that because building that trust is hard in this industry.
It is.
I see that a lot.
And if you're living on the load board, which so many people do, right? There's a purpose for a load board, right? I totally get them, but it's got to be the third purpose, in my opinion. It's got to be, work with your direct, relationships first, then work with, local brokers, local carriers second, and then lastly go to those load boards. So, I think honestly, one of those things, and I got to say, the broker that I was working with this week, his niche, he actually hasn't made a cold call. He's actually terrible at cold calling. He's really terrible at cold calling. But he truly is the king of referral relationships. Absolutely the king. He's been a freight broker for over 5 years. He's busier every day than he knows what to do with. He never posts his loads. He hates to post loads. He's just built really good relationships, and he's a freight broker. He's built really good relationships with carriers that he knows. And if one of his carriers doesn't work, he actually uses Ecarriercheck, gets on, finds somebody else in the area that's similar to the people that he's already working with. And that's his niche, is he has just, oh my gosh, he has taken so much time and energy and effort to build relationships. And I got to say, when I was talking to Edward out of Idaho, I said, you've got to take every day an hour to build relationships.
Yeah, you're not lying there. Whether it's, and that's the beauty of Ecarriercheck too, is well, how can I find those brokers that are just trying to build relationships? Well, you have Ecarriercheck. I mean, you sit back and just, like you said, take an hour a day and make those calls, you're going to find someone. It does take some effort and some time.
Yeah.
I wish we had a magic wand to say, well, this freight broker needs me today and this shipper needs me here. It's not, I wish, that's kind of what we lived in, but definitely picking up that phone and you start building those relationships.
Yeah.
It does take some time.
Absolutely. Now we're mainly talking freight, for those of you who are on or just joining, obviously type in the Q&A, some of the challenges you've had for the week, some of the wins you've had for the week. I'd love to see some of the wins that our community has had. And no inspections. Yeah. That's honestly, the inspection thing is just, you got to check to see if they have inspections. You got to check to see if they're reporting mileage. How you do that, by the way, is you can look up the ML 150 and you'll see how many miles that they've ran last year. And they should be reporting that. But if they're not, that might be a red flag.
Yeah.
Right. So what was another good question that you got this week?
I got really 2 good ones here. Can Ecarriercheck replace a load board? This was interesting. This is the same guy that asked me on that Q&A yesterday, and I told him our goal was to help him build his business. How Ecarriercheck and the load boards can go hand in hand, very much so. We also have the users on our side that just use it to build relationships, and they don't have the load board. So, it goes both ways. It all depends, I feel like, where you're at in your life and your position with work. So, it does take time to build a relationship. So maybe you utilize that load board, but while you're doing that, building relationships through Ecarriercheck.
Yeah. I definitely think it's about the journey, where you're at in the journey, because I think it's important to experience all of it. Mr. Riviera says he gets on low boards and they're all double brokers and all this, right? That's specifically Hutch. There's going to be some good carriers that come off load boards, right? There's going to be good relationships off of those load boards, but really that all ends up coming out to how much effort you want to put in, right? Making cold calls the other day, we made cold calls on a class, which was a lot of fun actually, but it just shows you how difficult it was. We made, in 2 hours, we researched and did maybe 6 calls, 7 calls, right? Had some really good conversations. Obviously, the smaller the shipper was, the more kind of just those people were more open to telling you more about it. The bigger ones, oh my gosh,
it was a pain. It felt like
there's nothing wrong with big shippers, right? They have a lot of freight, they can fill a lot of volume, but they take a long time to get into.
So that brings me back to kind of a couple of things that you mentioned is take that time, maybe that first part of the morning, build that pipeline. Maybe the next day you come back with calls. But one thing that has definitely stuck with me that you've mentioned is, well, your next call could definitely be the best call. Make sure you just keep calling. Pick up the phone, keep calling. The next guy could be a good fit.
Yeah. Something that I got stuck in, you mentioned, can we replace a load board? And why we created Ecarriercheck was just simply for, I got to tell you, this is a fault of mine. Okay? I got too lazy. It was too easy. Prior to COVID, I could just post a load and I could just get a call and I could make a few $100, and then I would just go on to the next one and post a load and do this. And at the very beginning of when I was freight brokering, I didn't necessarily realize the value of brokering and having relationships with those carriers, right? And so, could we replace a load board? Absolutely. Is it going to take effort? Yeah, absolutely. You've got to put time. You got to be intentional with your time. I think something that really helped me with time management, because I think we all struggle with time management, right? It's kind of a reaction-based world that we're in. You get a client, he sends you an email. Yeah, I need this load picked up today, or you're on some kind of bidding, email or bidding site, even for that matter, and you just kind of react through the day. And something that if you can measure that and say, okay, 100% of my work day is reactive right now. But what I want to do is I want to get to 80%. I want to get to 70% proactive, being intentional with my day, right? Because how important is it? If you look at my calendar, Nate, it is nuts. But the reason why it's nuts is I'm trying to be intentional with that particular business decision that I make. Maybe that's training somebody, one of our clients. We love to do. We love to get together and talk about business with people individually. Hit us up if you ever need to. But God, it's so important that you go from reactive all day to a little bit of intentionality, because that's what's going to drive your business. That's what's going to help take it to the next level. What's the vision? Where do you want to go? Ryan, would you love to have 5 trucks underneath you right now and those guys are all going? Or do you just want to run your own, right? So I think also in that same regards, it's really important that you have your vision and you continue to work on it and look at it and say, where am I going? What am I going to do? Right?
Yeah, you definitely have to, each week, just kind of look at that. And I know that's something you're a big fan of is, how's my week going to look? What's my goal for this week? It's obviously good to have long-term goals, but also have these weekly goals.
Yeah, absolutely. You still got to be intentional daily and grind daily, but you visualize. You've got to go, where am I going and what am I going to get accomplished? And I think that's important to do that. What's another good question that you had this week?
Oh yeah, this one's a good one. I deal with this one quite a bit, and which is good because we get a lot of newer people into this industry. So I had this guy that was on the call yesterday, and he was asking me what to say to a carrier. He kept calling himself, well, I'm so and so from dispatching. Click. Hang up, right? And he would continue to do that. So we talked about ways that he could just kind of come off differently. Maybe say logistics or service provider, whatever it may be. Come up with your own flavor. And I told him to continue to make those calls, and he'll start to play those games in his head. Oh, maybe I need to say this next time or say this. and he's a big fan of our YouTube channel. So
Okay.
he's seen a lot of our interviews and our live calls. So he's like, just watching our content on YouTube really made him, one, pick up the phone and make calls, and two, do it differently.
Yeah.
So there's some benefit to our channel, and definitely take a watch of those videos. It's really worth the time.
Yeah. I think dispatching calls are some of the harder calls to make in range, right? You can call shippers all day and provide value fairly quickly, right? Brian on here, tire killer, he mentions that if they mention the word dispatch, he's like, I'm tired of it. I don't want to deal with it. But how do you, at the end of the day, how do you make a good call as a dispatch? How do you connect with somebody really quickly? And I think, you're gonna find ways around this. Maybe like you said, you don't use the word dispatch. I think it's important that you have a good tone in your voice. You know what I mean? Like you want to sound friendly. You want to sound like you're somebody that people want to deal with. Yeah. And I have a really tough conversation with a guy on Tuesday of this week, and he's a dispatcher. Nice guy. He was out of West Virginia. It's hard to understand, right? His tonality sounded angry. He wasn't, but he just seemed pissed off. And I'm like, are you pissed right now? Yeah. I don't know what's going on, right? So, and then from there, just measure. You're going to measure what you say every time. Record yourself. Honestly, just set up if you have two phones, perfect. If you don't, just set up a phone and just start to record yourself and go, hey, we had a dispatcher on the other day, and I loved how she goes, hey, this is Misty. I wanted to see if you've got your first load yet. Yeah. Wasn't that an interesting way of opening up?
Right. And then I think another way to think about it is, well, what's your why? Think about that why, and then understand that carrier also has their why.
Oh, absolutely.
So to listen and understand where they're coming from is huge.
Absolutely. You know what I think would be another interesting question is, and Brian knows this right off the top of his head, the guy that I work, do phone calls with, hey, this is Jared. Have you figured out your cost per mile yet, or can I give you a free evaluation? It'd be so interesting to really help carriers. You want to add value to some carriers? Help them understand their costs. God, they don't think about all the things that come out of that check. The factoring numbers. You can go down the road of maintenance, and it's just there's a lot going on, right? Yeah. What's fuel at where you like to go. Ryan gets to run local loads. He knows what his fuel costs are. But if he starts running 800 miles up the road, guess what? He needs to figure out what the fuel is up there. Right? Maybe he's going into Northern California. It's still $6 a mile, gallon, right? So I definitely think that's important that you take those calls as a dispatcher. If any of you are on here that are dispatchers, think of if people are zigging, you got to zag. And there's your own way of being unique, whatever that is. Okay. But the things that you need to be definitely unique in is don't sound grumpy and be somewhat understandable and relatable. You just want to work with people they like. Exactly. Right? Yeah. I'm not going to call how we deal with. There's a couple of people that we deal with here locally that, they're just tough to talk to. Nobody wants to talk to them.
Be present.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Understand what their why is. Yeah. Get to know them. Build a relationship with them. Be unique. So, I love that. What? Any other questions that came up this week that really kind of hit on the head?
That seemed to be the hot topics for me this week. For the past couple of months, which is good. People are trying to learn and figure out this industry. Yeah, it's crazy, and we all want to put food on the table and try to grow. And it's the way it is in this world. We got to try to help each other out. And it's actually funny that I just said that because one of our guys on our Monday demo said the same thing. He called another broker just for advice. Trying to ask a question. The broker didn't want to deal with him. Yeah. So he's like, I said, this is the world we live in, and this is why you're in this community. I'm glad you're here. So we can help you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Any questions that you guys have, if we can't answer them, honestly, we've got some great mentors that help with training that we're a part of. There's Charles Mundy, there's Shaggy. There's some people that are doing some training and some true mentoring out there. There's other people too that actually do this, but they're truly taking the time to say, okay, I'm going to hold your hand. I'm going to pull you through until we get you success.
Right. And they mean it so intentionally too. They'll give you their cell phone numbers. And, then you have that ability to access to them.
Yeah.
Not many people like that.
Absolutely. Tire Killer says maybe start out with a load in the carrier's area and see if you're interested, and then bleed into other runs. Boom, right? This is a really good one, Ryan. And I know you're not a dispatch fan. It's okay. Not everybody is. Um, you know, but you kind of hit it on the head. In fact, actually, one of the more successful dispatchers that we work with, and we work with him constantly, is he is the king of reaching out to brokers, getting to know new brokers, local brokers. And he's really the king of just getting them to start emailing him lists. Hey, I'm working on getting carriers that are around your network. Are there lanes that I can see that have rates that I can see that you can send me on a daily basis? Man, that guy is not lacking carriers. I bet he's set up with, he kind of dominates. That's his niche. He dominates, like, I think it's like Central to Northern California. He's got 25 brokers that are set up with him to send him loads every day. And then his cold calls get a lot easier. Like Brian said, have some value. Don't just go get load board loads because anybody can, right? So have some value as a dispatcher. Help them understand costs. Find some brokers that you build relationships with and get them to send that. I love that comment, Brian. That's wonderful. As we close out today, a couple other last thoughts is, I'm really glad that the railroad, didn't go on strike this week. I think that would have been really, the world's tough enough.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You're not lying.
We didn't need any more curveballs. That people need, some kind of certainty in their life, and in logistics and transportation, there seems to be more uncertainty than certainty.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that happened. I love that it's fall, by the way. It seems like things are kind of cooling off a little bit. And I'm super excited about that. But I do want to say thank you to our community. Our community is really, truly a blessing to us. You provide so much value, so much education. But thank you. I can't thank you guys enough. If you do watch, obviously we're a homegrown sort of business, software model. We really don't pay for advertising. So anybody that can comment on our YouTube or subscribe or hit like, we're down. Give us a Google review. That helps our cause as we continue to grow and try to set the world on fire a little bit. So,
definitely thank you to everyone. Definitely a blessing.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, I hope you have an awesome, guys and gals. I hope you guys have an awesome weekend. Any questions, check out Ecarriercheck. We do demos Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays. We do a crazy Q&A on Wednesday. And we would love to answer any questions, help you guys grow your business, because that's our number one goal.
Let's connect. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Have a good day.